All right, look, I'm not going to pretend like that James Earl Jones tribute that they threw at the very beginning of the movie didn't hit home and wasn't a nice touch, because that was honestly pretty endearing. So Mufasa the Lion King is a prequel to a remake while also being a sequel to that remake of a film from 1994 that, in my opinion, should have been a one and done, never touched again, never needed any direct to DVD sequels or anything outside of, I guess, maybe that Broadway production. But I want to know from you guys, do you think that anything outside of the original Lion King film is worth watching? Do you think that this deserved to be franchised and that the remake was justified? Or do you think that this is just unnecessary milking of the brand just so Disney can fatten their pockets? I would love to hear what you have to say down in the comments below. Of course, please be respectful about it in the comments. No need to go at each other's throats over this. Just a movie after all, not the most important thing in the world. And while you're down there, you might as well leave this video a like if you like this review. Subscribe if you want more videos like this in your feed. And if you're up to it, you can click the links in my description. They'll take you to my Instagram, Letterboxd, Serialized and Gigi, and follow me on other accounts where I post plenty of other reviews for stuff that doesn't always make it onto this channel. But for now, let's get back to this review. So in terms of stuff that I liked, for one, the animals actually emote in this one. That was a big complaint about the 2019 live action remake was, yeah, great, you got these hyper-realistic animated animals, but we can't read any emotion on their faces because they look like actual animals. There's no artistic expression. There's no human emotion there that we're latching onto like we did with the 1994 original. So what's the point of this? This one, they actually take that step and are adding in a couple of tweaks to the face so you can actually see the emotion in the eyes and faces of these characters, which was actually a good call on the director's part, or art director's part, or whoever was responsible for that decision. They listened to the audience and understood what didn't work the first time and improved upon it. I gotta admire that. And I gotta say, the cinematography in this one was at least more memorable than the 2019 one. I mean, I love Jon Favreau, I love him as a director and a filmmaker, but I just don't really remember that many shots in that movie standing out as like amazing or cinematography to the maximum or stylistic in any way. I don't know, it just was pretty bland. This one, the camera's whipping around, there's really interesting, unique shots. The only time I think it didn't really work was when they tried to do this weird slow-mo shot, and the frame rate on the character models just, it didn't look good. Preston Neiman, one of the two, plays Zazu. So Zazu's played by an actor who isn't John Oliver. That's a plus. And narratively, I appreciate the ambition to tell a new story within this continuity, and even though we're milking this IP for all it's worth, at least they went in a new direction and they weren't just making some, like, you know, Lion King 2 remake or something stupid like that. And I guess the voice acting wasn't horrible, at least compared to the 2019 movie where the voice acting feels like it's being read for the first time at a table read, even by the likes of the great late James Earl Jones, who is not doing nearly as good of a job as he did in the original 1994 Lion King.
Scar! Scar! Brother! Help me! Help me!
Long live the king.
Long live the king!
Everything just felt so, you know, dry and emotionless, and in this it feels somewhat okay, I guess. First and foremost, Kiara, the son of Nala and Simba, who's in this film, is voiced by Beyonce's daughter. And while I didn't think she did a terrible job in the role, still a nepo hire. Piggybacking off of that, Timon and Pumbaa suck, and I hate saying this because I love Timon and Pumbaa from the original, even from the direct-to-DVD movies. They are some of my favorite parts of those original films. And yet, Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner are just awful. Nails on chalkboard as these characters. They were terrible in the 2019 remake where they just can't sing, especially Seth Rogen. And in this, every time they cut back to Timon and Pumbaa, it's just the worst part of the movie, because this whole film is a story of Mufasa's life told by Rafiki to Kiara and Timon and Pumbaa, and every time they chime in, I'm just like, oh my gosh, shut up. Narratively, the concept of Scar and Mufasa not being brothers is just really stupid. I don't understand this. Like in this story, Scar, or well, his name is Taka in this because he hasn't become Scar yet. Taka is noble blood. He is in the royal bloodline, and Mufasa is just an outsider. Like, I don't know, man. It just feels kind of deconstructionist in a way. And so Mufasa is rejected by Obasi, who is Scar's father and the leader of their pride. So Scar's mom is teaching Mufasa how to be a hunter and all that stuff, and Scar himself is under the tutelage of his father. And so what we're being shown here is Mufasa being raised by a female lion, turns out brave and noble, and Scar, who is being raised by a male lion, turns out self-preservationist and cowardly. And before you guys go into the comments and start saying I'm grasping at straws, the film outright says this. I mean, Obasi is literally saying this. He says that the roles of the males in the pride is to nap and protect the pride. And his protecting the pride is sitting around and doing nothing. And so I'm not going to directly spell this out for you or anything, but it just feels like there's a very clear theme that they're trying to communicate here.
Because of the implication.
Classic Disney. Also, I just gotta say, too much of this new story feels awful familiar. Right away at the beginning of the film, as a cub, Mufasa finds himself in danger in the middle of a pit, and his parents jump in to save him, and tragedy ensues from it. He is separated from his family, they are broken up, and then he is left to live his life as an outcast throughout the rest of the film. Where have I seen this before? Like, they even recreate this shot in its entirety, basically. Also, I just gotta say, the animation does not feel nearly as fine-tuned as it did in 2019. And I don't know if this is a restriction because of, you know, you gotta compromise the hyper-realism for the emotion in the face, but I feel like it wasn't just in the facial movements of these animals, it was also in their body movement, it was in the lighting, it was in the environment. Just something about it felt computer generated. And obviously this whole thing is computer generated. We already know that going in, but I'm saying the 2019 live action Lion King movie that we got 5 years ago, those lions looked freaking real. Like, it was scary how real they looked. And in this, I just did not feel that ever. It all looked like Secret Level. And that's not a knock at Secret Level or anything. That show looks really, really good. But it's a different type of good. It's this is clearly elevating animation to a certain extent. Meanwhile, this movie is trying to synthetically recapture real life movement and physics, but it's not doing it right. Also, I just gotta say, the movie is way too long. Like, it's almost 2 hours, not even 2 hours long. There's so much that could have been cut out, namely the Timon and Pumbaa stuff and all the narration with Rafiki and Kiara and all that. You could have just completely removed all of that and it wouldn't have made a difference. I feel like if you strictly focused on Mufasa, made this 80 to 90 minutes long, would have been a lot more tolerable, a lot more digestible. I guess another option would be just not making the movie at all because we don't really need it. Yeah, and the music was pretty lame too. All the musical numbers are just kind of weak. They're nowhere near as memorable or as impactful as the original music was from 1994. Granted, that is a tall order in terms of topping or even coming anywhere close to. They just don't feel right, and that's because freaking Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote them. He's got a style. That style is not Lion King. And like, most of those songs don't even really tell you anything that you don't already know. I feel like when you're doing a musical, you need those musical moments to emphasize stuff or clarify information that isn't normally discussed in the normal dialogue or even in the narrative. It is a emotional expression of how these characters are feeling in a different form. You know, it's not just regular exposition. And that's something I've got to give like Wicked credit for. I know I wasn't like super positive about that movie, but I at least acknowledge that it did a good job in the musical aspect that it was going for. Also, this movie is just packed full of stupid homages and member berries and... okay. Skip to that time if you don't want to know anything about the movie. Otherwise, we're getting into spoilers right now. So Scar pulls the old claws, grabbing onto Mufasa's paws thing just to homage his death from the original Lion King movie. He does this like twice. and there's literally no other reason other than to just, make a callback. Rafiki is hanging off of some random branch that eventually breaks, and then when he gets up and picks it up, it's like, oh, hey, look, it's his iconic staff. In the third act, there's this Animal Kingdom stampede that's going against the White Lion Pride or whatever, and so then the earth starts shaking, and then the mountain starts crumbling, and then part of the rock slides down and then falls out like this, and it's like, oh, hey, look, that's how Pride Rock came to be. So Sarabi falls in love with Mufasa, and Scar gets pissed because Mufasa knows that Scar was in love with Sarabi and wanted to be with her. So Scar gets all petty and sells them all out, his own brother, and all of his friends to the White Lion bad guys. But then decides to change his mind at the last minute about wanting Mufasa to die. And so as the White Lion is about to scratch Mufasa and kill him or whatever with his claws, Scar jumps in there and takes the brunt of the hit, and that's how he gets his iconic scar on his face. What? And so like Mufasa agrees to let Scar live in the Pride Lands after the bad guys have been defeated or whatever, but because of that betrayal, he doesn't trust Scar anymore, and he refuses to utter the name Taka, which is Scar's real name. And Scar's just there like, you can call me Scar, I'm really sorry, man. And then Mufasa's like, I'll call you Scar, I guess. It's just so annoying because moments like these feel so forced. The Pride Rock, the Rafiki staff, the freaking Scar and how he got his name. It's like, these are not questions we needed answers for. Like when you just start providing lore explanation for stuff that never needed explaining, we can see what you're trying to do.
It was pretty obvious what you're about to do.
We can tell that you're trying to evoke nostalgia in the weirdest of ways, and the most like scraping the bottom of the barrel tactic you can possibly find, and it just comes off as dumb and forced as something like,
Who are your people?
I don't have people. I'm alone.
Solo.
So overall, this movie isn't great, but I would say that it's at least better than the 2019 remake simply because it tried something new with the story, even though I don't think it stuck the landing all that great. It went in a different direction, and it wasn't just rehashing an old story from a film that I grew up loving and still love to this day, and delivering a worse version of that. But for a final score out of 10, I think I'm just going to give this one a 5 and call it a day. So Mufasa the Lion King, did you see it? Did you think it was better than the remake? Or do you think that this was even worth watching? Or did you just completely skip it because you're sick of Disney remakes and you don't think that this is even worth your money? I would love to hear what you have to say. But if I can make a recommendation as to what movie you see this weekend, go and see Sonic 3. Between the two that just came out, that is the clear victor here. That is worth your time and worth your money. Please go see that movie and have a good time. Don't even bother with this one. You can probably catch it on Disney Plus next month because that's how it goes these days. But until next time, guys, God be with you and take care.